Indian Writing in English, Module 1, Poetry, Indian Voices. English in India. In 1792, Charles Grant, the director of East India Company, put forward a proposal to make English a vehicle for the transmission of Western ideas. In the tract titled Observations on the State of Society among the Asiatic Subjects of Great Britain, Grant wrote that the true cure of darkness is the introduction of light. The Hindus err because they are ignorant. His intention was that the British should reinforce India through the introduction of English language and literature along with Christianity and Western mechanical sciences. Christian missionaries also promoted English by opening many new schools and colleges. Rajaram Mohan Roy, Debendranath Tagore are some of the pioneers of Brahma Samaj who helped people to understand the vital importance of English in India. Macaulay's Minute upon Indian Education recommended English as the medium of instruction. According to him, English is better worth knowing than Sanskrit or Arabic, that the natives are desirous to be taught English and are not desirous to be taught Sanskrit or Arabic. Macaulay believed that efforts ought to be directed towards making the natives of this country good English scholars. So all these factors made possible the cultural fusion and assimilation between the East and the West. Without the influence of the English Romantic poets like Keats and Shelley, the fine echoes and exquisite execution of Tagore's poetry or the melody of Sarojini Naidu's lyrics probably would not have been possible. Modern literary renaissance in India was the outcome of the impact of English literature on Indian literature with its Sanskritic tradition. The course of the development of Indo-English poetry can be divided into different phases or ages. The Age of Pioneers is a 50-year period from 1820 to 1870. The era of Indian Renaissance is from 1870 to 1900. This era is also called the Age of the Dutts after the poets Arudat, Torudat and Romesh Chandra Dutt. The era of political awakening begins from 1900 and continues till the year of India's independence in 1947. The era of independence is from 1947. The Age of Pioneers. The 50-year period from 1820 to 1870 is regarded as the Age of Pioneers. The poems written during this phase were quite similar to the British English poetry of the times. Henry Derozio, Michael Madhusudan Dutt were some of the major poets of the period. Derozio is regarded as the father of Indo-Anglian sonnets. While Derozio was influenced by the English poets Lord Byron and Walter Scott, Michael Madhusudan Dutt was a more original writer despite the fact that he was also an admirer of Lord Byron. The era of Indian Renaissance is a period from 1870 to 1900. This period is also called the Age of the Dutts. Toru Dutt and her sister Aru Dutt were gifted poets, but both of them were fated to die an early death, much like Chatterton, who is described by Shelley in his elegy Adonais as the inheritor of unfulfilled renown. Toru Dutt was a highly talented writer with great originality and creative power. She was deeply informed about the cultural fabric of India and also glorified the cultural heritage of her nation in the poems. A Sheaf Gleaned in French Fields, written in 1876, and Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan, written in 1882, are the titles of her poetry collections. She has also written a novel in French titled Les Journal de Mademoiselle, which was published in 1879. Romesh Chandra Dutt published two English language condensations and translations of the authoritative Sanskrit tellings of the ancient epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Thoru Dutt and Romesh Chandra Dutt. The era of political awakening, also called the Gandhian era, is a period from 1900 to 1947. The poetry of this phase is characterized by an intense patriotism and political awareness. Rabindranath Tagore, Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, Sarojini Naidu, Harendranath Chattopadhyaya were some of the important poets of this period. They were all influenced by Romanticism, but they also had a fondness for 18th century English poetic diction, the age of reason and sentiment, that is, Neoclassicism and Pre-Romanticism. The era of independence begins from 1947 onwards. The poetry written during this period is characterized by an expression of personal emotion, lyricism, complex linguistic experiments, dry intellectual tone, and satire. In his introduction to the golden treasury of Indo-Anglican poetry, Professor V.K. Gokak classifies the 20th century poets into neo-modernists and neo-symbolists. Humanism and irony were the features of the poetry of the neo-modernists. The poetry of neo-symbolists was characterized by a fondness for mysticism and sublimity. These are some of the poets of this period: Dom Moraes, Nizam Ezekiel, Kamla Das, A.K. Ramanujan, Partha Sarathi, Shiv K. Kumar, Jayant Mahapatra, and Jeev Patel. Let us also take a look at some of the notable names in pre-independence poetry. They are Henry Derozio, Thoru Dutt, Michael Madhusudan Dutt, Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, Manmohan Ghosh, Rabindranath Tagore, Sarojini Naidu, Harendranath Chattopadhyaya, and Romesh Chandra Dutt. The post-independence poets were the Indian poets in English who appeared in the 1960s and after.